today. I just hope that today will be all good. I hope so, and to be good. I know so. I want to believe that. So let me share my screen again. All right. So I will ask the questions, all of them at once, at the same time. And that way that I want to be able to judge you seeing 3 years or 2 years or 1 year according to the question. So when you drop the first yes is for the first question, the second yes is for the second question. If there's a no, that will be the third question. So I want you to drop it in that order so that I can actually judge who and what point each one of you are on. I'm expecting maybe 16 or 15 responses. So when I see your response, I know that, okay, this is the position you are on. The first question is, if you can set up a server, an Express server with NodeMon and configure.env. That is the first question. The second question is, you can make a GET request. It doesn't matter whether it's a complex GET request or a simple GET request. The most important thing is that you will click send on Postman, not the browser now, on Postman, and then Postman will get a response. That's a GET request. So that's the second question. The third question is, if you know you can actually perform a post request on Postman, meaning you type in data into Postman and send the data and you get a response. Now, those are the three questions I want to ask. So your responses, I want to see 17 or 16 responses. Drop 3 of them. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Partially yes, no, no. Okay. That's two responses. I want to drop the 3 of them at the same time so that I know. Yes, okay. Michael, okay. 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 All right. And I should be taking note. This is one now. This is one. Now, if you sent only one, please make them 3. I want to see the 3 of them at the same time. So I'm counting. Okay. For those persons who said no to the second question, I want to believe that the first question, those that will be having challenges with the first question will be the new students. I want to believe that one. So for the persons who are having challenges with second question and the third questions, what should we do? Should we revisit it and do it again, or what do you want? Should we do it again now? I'm still waiting for the responses. If you've not dropped your response, please go ahead and drop your response. And for those who are just joining us, the question is, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, expecting 3 answers. And the first answer is for the first question, the second answer to the second question, and the third answer just like that. Now, the first question is, if you know you can set up an Express server with NodeMon configured, .env configured, that's like an Express server and your port is listening. If you can set up that one, that's the first question. Drop a yes or no. The second question is, if you can make a GET request with Postman. From Postman, now it doesn't matter what you are sending as response, so long as you click yes on the send on Postman. You click send on Postman and Postman will get a response. That's the first one. The third question now is, if you can make a post request. A simple post request, it doesn't matter how the complexity, it doesn't matter. What matters is you can actually type in something into Postman and you send it into your backend, and the Postman will get a response. That's the third question. There is an error on here. You are using curly braces instead of a bracket here. So this is supposed to be a bracket. And so this here and here are supposed to be brackets and not curly braces. That's the error. Okay, now the reason why I'm asking this question is at this point, we are on track, meaning our timeline, we are in order. We are in order. So, but if we slow down again, we'll be short on time. By next month, the program is supposed to have ended. And before the end of the program, you should be able to build your own backend. And we have not actually done anything on the backend apart from setup. So this is what I will do. I will go through setting up, from setting up to making post requests and making a get request. I'll do it today. And I want to believe it will be like the revision class and the last time we'll do it. Because if we do it again, our timeline, I would have eaten up our timeline. May not be able to meet up or complete the curriculum. So please, if there is anything you have to do to understand the setup, we've not done anything on the back end. We're just doing setup. If there is anything you have to do to understand the setup, I was hoping that by today we will connect a database to the back end. But the way it stands now, we can't even connect that database yet. So I will go through setting up. I may not explain deeper and much, so just pay attention to it. If there is anything you don't understand, you drop the question and I will answer you. So let me start something new. And I want to believe I'm recording this. Yes, I am. So the first thing you need to do is to create a project directory or a folder. That's the first thing you do. You create a project directory or a folder. Now, when you create the folder, you open up that folder with VS Code. This is VS Code, and check if you have an account. I think with Postman, you need to log in with an account. If you have a Gmail, log in with your Gmail account. So the next thing you need to do when you open that folder with VS Code is to initialize npm in the project. Now you can use your external terminal or this integrated terminal. So initializing npm is saying npm init. So npm init, you want to initialize npm in the project. Now this is going to ask you a series of questions, but you want to say dash dash yes. And dash dash yes means you are saying yes to all the questions npm this setup will ask you. You're saying yes to everything. So if I hit enter, it's going to ask me these information that I want to generate for you. This information, are they okay? Yes, they are okay. It has created a file called package.json. And I want to stress that the package.json is one of the most important files when it comes to the backend project. So here you have the name of the project, the version, the script, and so on and so forth. Now, these informations from here, you can change any of them anytime you want. The script too, you can change it if you want. You can also change the author. You can also change this. So everything here, you can change them to whatever you want. But for now, we are not changing anything. We're keeping the default. So after you have created the package.json file, with initializing npm. My screen is tiny. I missed this question. I think we have a question and answer topic. Please. My screen is tiny. Is it VS Code or is it uh which one is it? I want to know from you. So let me, if this is okay, if this font size is okay, or if I should increase it. So when we create package.json file, this is our main file. So whatever file we are creating to be the main file must match the name here. I will create my main file as index.js. Hit enter. So index.js, I want to set up my server now, and it is Express server. So what I will do is clear this up. Should use npm install express, but npm will not work on my system. So you should use npm install express. I rather prefer yarn add express and .env. I'm adding the .env together. So I'm installing the two of them together as normal dependencies. I hit enter. Now to know that these things are installed, you should see a keyword here that says dependencies. Now under dependencies, you have .env and express. Now the second thing I want to do, I'll clear this up and install nodemon. Yarn add nodemon. Now, like I said, I may not explain deeper. Reason being, we've explained this over and over. So I want to believe that those who don't understand, maybe there's something you are missing. So if I get to the part where you are missing something and you don't understand it or you don't understand why, please ask question. If you allow me past this stage, I will believe that you understand it. So if there's something I've done or I'm doing you don't understand, please drop your question in the question and answer topic. So I want to add yarn, but I will add these as a dev dependencies. Hit enter. Yes, now I have installed 3 packages. 2 of them are normal dependencies and 1 is a dev dependency. So I can close my, now I don't want to close it yet. Let me set up my script. I'll put comma here and then add 2 scripts, the start script and the dev script. So I have 2 scripts, the start script and the dev script. So in the start script, I want Node to run my main file, and my main file is index.js. The dev script, I want nodemon to run my main file, and my main file is index.js. Now these are my scripts. These are the scripts I'll be using. Now this start script is very, very important because you'll be deploying it to the server and you will not be there to tell the server what to do or how to start. So the server is expecting that you have this script. That's done. We could close this. The first thing we want to do is bring in our variables. The first variable is express. So we set express to require the express we installed. We are bringing in express. The second thing we want to bring in .env. We say const .env is equal to require the .env we installed, like this. So now we can say .env, we can configure it later. At the express, we can also configure express later. Down here, we say const our backend app. You can call it app, you can call it server, whatever you want. So I'll say my app is going to be running on the express function. So my app is going to be running on the express function. After that, I want my app to start listening. So I'll say app.listen. app.listen. Now, for it to listen, I need to give it a port number that it will listen to, and also it should tell me when it has started listening. If you have any question at any point, ask me. Please ask me. I know I mean, if I'm not very fast, please you drop a question that I am fast. Maybe I might slow down, please. So the next thing I want to do is I want to configure .env and create a .env file. So here I will create a .env file. I want to believe everybody knows why we install these 3 dependencies and what each one is doing. You know why we installed Express, you know why we installed NodeMon. Yes, now this listen part is the part of communication. To be able to communicate to our backend, you should be making requests to the port on which our backend is listening to. So if our backend is listening to port 8000, in order for a front end to communicate to it, you should be making a request to that particular port on which it is listening to. If you make a request to any other port, our app is not listed on that port. So that is why we need to pass in a port here. And inside here, I will create the port and say the port, for now, I'll put it at 5000 and save it. That's what I have here. And I'll close this file. Done. So here I will create a variable called port and set the value to be coming from the process.env, and inside the env the variable called port. Now if you don't find that one, then fall back to 8000. Now this is all. If you don't find any port inside the process.env, fall back to 8000. So here I can then say listen at port, and it's listening at port, but that's not all. When you start listening, I want you to run a function, and what the function should do is to console log for me server is running on port. So I will use a string concatenation here and then put the value of the port here. So now I have a server, but I've not configured .env. Normally you can just add here .config. Now you can add it here to configure it, automatically import and configure, or you come down and then add .env, then configure .config like this and save this. So with this, I've succeeded in setting up a server. I installed 2 dependencies here and I brought them in. I configured .env here, and then I set my app to run on the express function. Here I'm declaring a variable for port, saying the value will come from the port that is in a process environment. Now this is the value here, this port that is coming from here. And if you don't find anything here, then fall back to 8000. Then I ask my server to listen on ports. Now this port here will either be 5000 or 8000. Now when you start listening, run a console log for me and tell me the port that you are listening on. So with this, I've succeeded in setting up my server. Now we need to confirm that the server is running. So what I will do is I will use an external terminal. I will use external terminal as this to run my server. So here I'll say yarn, not yarn this time, npm run dev. I want to run the dev script, and to see that my server is running, it says server is running on port 5000. So with this, we succeeded in setting up a server. And like I said before, you don't have to cram this at all, if you don't remember it, you can always go to npm.js/express, or go to npm.js and type in express here. Just type in express here. It will bring out what you need to know on how to set up a simple function. A simple server. Here it's talking about only express. Now, if you want to find out that of .env, you type in .env also and search. You find .env here. Okay. So you install .env and you configure .env. So here they are configuring .env automatically. You can also do it. However, there are so many ways of doing that, like that. So here you can bring it in and then configure later. So that's for .env, and that is for that. I want to believe we understood that part because I didn't see any question. So when you set up your server, that's not the end. You need to start communicating with your server. You need to start communicating with your server to be sure that your server is actually running. So what I'll do is I'll come here and declare a function and call it handle get request is equal to an async function. So what this function will do is that it will accept the request and also the response object. Like I said before, you can choose to type out this in full if you want. So handle the request here for me, send back a response. Let me use the keyword, return res.status. The status should be 200 and a JSON. Now I can destructure to add a message directly. The message should say successful. So that means if I see successful in my postman, I've made a successful get request. So I have my function here. The next thing I want to do is to declare the endpoint, say act.get. So I'm handling a get request. If there is a get request on this /, I want you to return handle get request like this. So if there is a get request here on this /, now this is the home route. If there's a get request here, this function will run. And this function is simply this function above. So like I said before, an API has three parts: the function, let's say the method, the get request, that's the route, the get request, the endpoint, and the function to handle the requests. These are the parts that make up an API. So here we have a simple API that will send back a response after setting up. And this will only work when you set up your server correctly and you see that your server is running. Otherwise, it will not work. So that is that. The next thing I want to do is to test my test it to see that it's actually working. So if you open Postman here, now if you don't log in, you may not see anything. And I think Postman have upgraded that. You may not see much. So, and if you don't see anything, if it is absolutely blank, it means maybe you don't have internet, because Postman requires internet. You are sending data from one platform to another platform. So it requires internet to communicate. And also, if you still have internet, if you have internet and you're not seeing anything, look for this thing that says keyword workspace. So you should create a workspace, create a new one, and then start going. So look for workspace anywhere around there, usually at the center here. Look for workspace, create a workspace, and you start using Postman. All right. And this one, everybody is quiet. I want you to drop a thumbs up in the question and answer if you are actually following. Drop a thumbs up in the question and answer if anybody is actually following. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a simple backend. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a simple backend. Now we want to test that this backend is actually receiving response from an external website. Now, the Postman is an external website. The reason why we are using Postman is because we cannot build a front-end website right now or a front-end mobile application right now. We can't. But we have a program that has already been built. It is independently not running on our system. Even though it's stored in our system, it's actually running independently of our backend. So they are not connected to our backend in any way. So don't see it that the Postman is somehow connected to the backend. Now you need another backend. No, the moment your backend starts responding to Postman, it means that your backend can also respond to any mobile app or any website. So that is why we use Postman to test the backend, because we cannot build a front-end application right now and start making that request. That is why we use Postman to test that request. We want to see if a website or a mobile app makes requests to our backend, if our backend can handle that request. So here I make sure that the endpoint is this. What I can do is come to Postman and then create a new request. So I click the plus sign and make sure that this is on a GET request and localhost. Now I said localhost is going to be the URL because currently this is running on our system, and localhost is the URL that points back to our system. So if you type localhost and there is a server running on your system, that server will be the server to respond. And make sure you are adding the port that correspond to the port that that server is listening on. If you put a different port, the server will not respond. But if you put here, for example, this server is running on 5,000. So if I put 5,000 here and hit enter, the server will respond with a message that says successful. So, and like I said before, I did this myself. So dividing it vertically was my doing. Yours will be divided horizontally. Now you can also choose to divide it vertically if you want. You just need to go to setting and then divide it however you want. If you have any question, drop your question now. So the next thing I can do is to declare another function here. User request, and set it to be an async function. So I'll separate it from the endpoint. And this is an async function that accepts the request and the response. Why am I getting const handle user request? Where is the error coming from? Expected this at what point? I'm trying to find what I spelled wrong. This is const handle user request. Is declared but the value never used. Okay, here async. All right. So then I can then return a response. Response.status. The status should be 200 and the JSON. So inside the JSON, I can destructure and add the message directly and say the message will be user added and save it. So down here, I will create another endpoint and say app.get and then /user. If there's a GET request on /user, then run this function. So now I have two APIs. One is handling a GET request on the home route. Another one is handling a GET request on the user route. So to test that, I'll come to Postman and then add / here. Users. Is it users or user? User. So if I send this request, I get a response that says user added successfully. So this is a simple GET request. Now, like I said before, it doesn't matter what you are sending back, provided you can come to Postman, add a GET request, add the URL, and click send, and you are getting a response. That is a simple GET request. And at this point, you should know how to do that. At this point. So the next thing I want to do is to handle a post request. So here I will create another function. Handle post request. Oh my God, sorry, they are supposed to be one word. Is equal to an async function that accepts the request and the response object. Here, I want to get the data from the request. So if I say const, destructuring the data. Now, I don't know what the data will be. So what I will do is just send back the data like that. For now, I can just send back any data. Response dot status 200.json, and destructure immediately add a message that will say successful. And the next thing I want to send back is whatever was sent in the request.body. So I'll just say user. Whatever was sent in the request.body becomes the user. So here, I'm not doing much, and I will explain what I'm doing. You know what? Let's just accept it from ourselves. So I will say const accept the email and password from the user in the request.body, like this. So back here, you should be sending the user email only. So what I'm doing in this post request is that the users are going to send email and password. All right. The users are going to be sending me email and password. Like I said, this is exactly what will happen in a mobile app or in any website. So they are going to be sending you email and password. Now, it doesn't matter where they are sending it from, whether they are sending from Postman, whether they are sending from website, whether they are sending from mobile app, it does not matter to you as a backend, provided you do something like this. Now, if you do something like this, it means for this request to run, the user is sending something inside the request body. You must be sending something inside the request body. So what I'll do is create another request. I say, app.post. I will call this add user. This is not supposed to be called add user. One of them should be add user. So this is list of users. I'll change that to list of users. So now this is for add user. So add users is the endpoint, and I'll run this function when a request is made to that endpoint. So here I have a post request. If you make a post request to this URL or this endpoint, this function will run. And what this function is simply doing is take the request.body, collect the password and the email from the request.body, then send back a response with a message that says successful, and send back only the email like that. So make sure that my server is running. Yes, my server is running, and I want to be sure that I copy this exact thing. So I'll come here, create another request, change it to post, and then here I will type localhost port 5000 / add users. Now this is a post request. It's not like a get request that was sent or can be sent without adding anything. For a post request, you must add something. So as a backend, you can add it to say you insist that you must add something, if not email. So if there is no email, return a response dot status, and that status code will be 400 dot JSON. And inside JSON, I can destructure immediately, or you know what, let me expand it. I can add message, and the message will be please add your email. And you are doing this because this is a post request. It's using the email, so it's going to be sending you back the email. If you don't add an email, it should return another response that says please add your email. It is very, very important that you add your email. Now you can do this for password if you want, but I want to keep it very simple. So I'll come to Postman and send this request, and I'm not getting a response. The reason why I'm not getting a response, now when you get an error like this, don't come to the ending part of the error. Where you see the error message is in the beginning here. So at the beginning, you will see the message. Now it says cannot destructure property email of request.body as it is undefined. Now I want to pause. Does anybody know why we are getting this error? I have explained this before, but does anybody know why we are getting this error? I know a few persons might have run into this error. So how did you solve this error? For persons who submitted the assignment, except you copied and pasted. So how do you solve this error message that says cannot destructure property email of request.body as it is undefined at handle post requests? Who knows why we are having that error? I know we talked about it in the last class. Who knows why? I'm waiting for your response. How did you cross this part? How did you cross this part? Is it because I have not entered anything on Postman? Make sure the variable name corresponds. Rest type in full. Okay, because there are no alternative route. Okay. Now it is saying that email, the request.body is undefined. That's what it's saying. It says that the request.body is undefined. The variable has to be declared. I agree with you. The variable has to be declared. So where do we declare the variable? Because we are sending this request from Postman. We are not sending the request within our app. So if you declare the variable within your app, how are you getting the user's email? The users are supposed to be the ones to send you their data. So should you declare their data within your backend? The email is undefined. We haven't assigned any variable yet. Now, I get you too. You are totally correct. Now, but my question is, how do we solve this? The request.body is undefined because it does not know what request.body is at this point. So whether we send data, whether we define data for this at this point, it cannot interpret what request the body is, because the format with which we send and receive data is JSON. And at this point, our backend has not been instructed to decode JSON. So how will it decode JSON? You need to add a middleware here. We need to add a middleware here. Now, a middleware is a function that runs in between the point at which the request is made and the point at which the request is attended to. So in between, in the middle, any functions that runs in the middle is called a middleware. So we want to create a function here that will decode the JSON message and pass it into our backend, so that our backend will not say that the message is undefined. So what we can say is that our app to use. Now, before, like I said before, you need to install a body parser to pass the JSON. But at this point, Express comes with body parser. So we are not installing a body parser. We just tell our app to use the body parser that comes with Express and pass the JSON into our backend. So here we are telling our backend app to use Express body parser to pass the JSON. And that is what, and this is the only thing you need to do. Now, if I check this, I'll see that my server has restarted and is running again. Yeah, my server is running again. And if I try to make this request, I'll send this request and the response came back, please add your email. So what we needed to do was just to add a line of middleware. So at any point when you start seeing that the request the body is undefined, if it tells you the request the body is undefined, like it's saying here, the request the body is undefined, you know that you need a body parser to pass the body, because of course we are reading the request body. So you need to pass the body into the JSON body parser here. Whatever will be sent in the body, this middleware will pass it into our backend app. So I want to believe you understood that. If you get that error, you'll be able to solve that error. So here, it's asking me to send my email. Now, no matter how many times you send it, because we are validating here, and we are saying if no email, if there is no email. Now, this negation means if not. This is negation, exclamation mark. It means if not. So anywhere you see exclamation is not. That's so the opposite. So this is the opposite of when email. So the opposite of email is no email. That's what this negation means. Negation is the opposite. So the opposite of email is no email. That is me explaining it, or will I say this is me explaining it literally the way it means, not the official definition. So when you see negation, it means the opposite. So this is email without negation. So this is the normal email. But when you see negation, it means opposite. So the opposite of email is no email. So we're saying if no email, return a response that says, please add your email. All right. So now in Postman, how do we add email when it comes to Postman? So this is Postman. And like I said, forget about every other thing here. You are interested in only this part where you choose the request type, where you enter the URL and the send button, this side for your response and this side for your body. Exactly. You can also add that too. You can say something like this. Now, I want to believe you understood the string method that we taught in class. Now you can say if email does include then you can add whatever you want at here. So here we are saying if it does not include add, copy the response for this one and send it back. So here we say email format incorrect. Now, although we have a regex to help in this, and I will show you how to do that. You don't have to manually do this, but you can. Email format incorrect. That's another validation. So here I'm saying the email, if it includes this, but because I'm adding a negation, that means the opposite of it. If the email does not include at, return email format incorrect. So if I send, now it's going to stop at this line because here we're using return. That's why it's stopping at this line and it's not down to this part. It's stopping here because I'm using return. Okay. So how do we add email in Postman? How do we add email in Postman? Somewhere here, you will see params. Now, I know I explained params before, but you have a drop down here. This drop down, these are a list of things you can do with the request. You can add the params, you can add authorization, you can add something in the headers, that's the head of the request, and you can also add something in the body, that is the body of the request. Now, if you look here, you see that we are getting this data from the body, that is the body of the request. So you should be adding that data in the body of the request. So you click on body. Now here it will say none. So you click on none and change it to raw. It has to be raw data. So you send it as raw data. Click draw and make sure here it is nothing but JSON. You have to be seeing JSON here because that is the format with which you send and receive data. So you add JSON. So here I'll put an object and this will be my email. So I will just test this with email without an at and send this request. And then I got a response that says email format is incorrect because we insisted that it must contain an at symbol. So if we change the at symbol to 3, it means if we don't add 3, it's going to say incorrect. So, but I'll keep the at and then write a better email here. For example, shift@gmail.com. Now, even if I don't spell it well at this point, it doesn't let me spell it well first. gmail.com, and I send this request. I see response successful, and the email of the user is sent back here. Now, because we are not doing anything with the password, that is why the response is proceeding as planned. Yes, this is email validation, but I'm going to teach you a deeper, or I may not do all of it, but I'll show you how we handle validation, the easy way to handle email validation too. So this is a simple post request, and everything was done in one file. Okay, validation, the difference between validation and authorization. A validation simply means that you are making sure that the user follows your rules, your guidelines. You say, click here. You say, send email. You say, send password. The password has to be 6 characters. The password needs to contain this. Your email has to be like this. Your name has to be full name. Just you are telling the user what to do, and you make sure that they are doing that thing you ask them to do. Now, authorization is you want to know that this person has a right to actually see these things. For example, you can build a website and then you say, everybody, before you use this website, you need to create an account with your email and password. So with your email and password, now how do you know that they actually need to see that website? When they send in their email and they send in their password, you take their email and you cross-check, yes, you have this email on your dashboard. Then you cross-check with the password they are sending to you. This password, is it the same password that is saved before? And you check it, yes, it's the same password that is created before. Then you create a token for them. Now that token is their authorization token. So it means at this point, you have verified that this person has a right to actually view or do whatever you want. Now, when they present that token at any point on the site or on the backend, then that is called authentication. Authentication is you have authorized them. It's just like somebody tells you to go to a particular company and go there, maybe go to Access Bank. And the person will ask, if I get to Access Bank, will they allow me inside? And the person say, you know what? Tell them my name or give them this ID card or type this thing. So whatever they are giving to you to tender, that is your authorization. Whatever they are giving to you to, once you reach the gate, you tender that ID card. That ID is the authorization. So they have verified you and they've given you an ID. Anytime you get to this part, tender this thing. Now, if they see it, they will need to, okay, that tells them that, okay, yes, we have seen this authorization. This is the person sending you the name you mentioned. We know the name is a boss, but they need to confirm again before granting you access. So they may run your ID by some form or anything, and that's the authentication part. So we're going to do that part if only you understand this part. We're going to do all of this part I'm explaining if only you understand this part. So ladies and gentlemen, we have covered the 3 questions I asked. Now, I don't want to ask again, can you do it? Because you did not drop any question. For those who dropped questions, thank you. I want to believe you understood what we did here. And any part of this file that I showed to you, you know what is going on. On that note, should I ask questions or you will ask questions? I'll call you by names. Should I ask question or you will ask question? If you say I should go ahead and ask my question, drop a thumbs up. If you say I should go ahead and ask my question, drop a thumbs up. If you want to ask your own question, drop your question before we move on to the next thing. Okay, I should ask my own question. Only one person. Who else? Should I ask my own question or you will ask your own questions? Yes, Adeyemi. Now, the middleware can be code. Now, all you need to know is that the middleware is a function that runs in the middle. Now, at this point, this middleware is a function, but it's a function that comes with Express. Know that Express is a block of code that has already been written as a module for us to use. We are not rewriting the codes again. So Express is just a block of code that's been written and packaged together for us to use. So in the course of your programming, you will be writing your own codes as middleware. So sometimes your middleware will be codes that you write, and other times your middleware will be code that others have written for you to use. Function of a curly braces. Now, the curly braces can serve different functions depending on where you are using it. Now, you can use a function, a curly brace, to declare an object. So if you see an object, you can use curly braces to declare an object. Now, another thing is a function can be if you see this together, so if you see the three of them together, this is an arrow function. So a curly braces can be used or is used in functions. So you can also see something like function. Yeah, so curly braces for now, you use it to declare an object or any object, and then you can also use curly braces inside the function. So here we're using a curly brace. If you see the three of them together, this is an arrow function. If you see these three together, this is a normal function. So if you look at my responses here, you notice that I am using curly braces here as an object. So I'm using curly braces here because I'm sending back an object. Inside the object, you have the first key that is called message, and the value is called successful. Now, this is ES6. That is why I'm not typing email. So with ES6, it says that when the value, the key and the value are the same name and spelled the same way, you can use only one. So you can do this if you want. The key is email, the value is email, and this email is this email that is coming from here. Or you can remove it and just type in only one. But either ways, you just know that what I did here was to create an object inside the JSON. An object with two keys, the message and the email keys. Now, if you look here too, I created an object here, meaning the response I want to send is an object, but with only one key, the message. Here too, I am also creating an object. So curly braces can be used to create an object, or it can be used in a function. But in a function, you need to be seeing brackets, fat arrow, and curly braces together. Now, if we want to look at our assignment, we may not have the whole time to cover what we need to do. And so it will be, now, when we will look at our assignment is when I give you individual projects. When I give you projects, you will defend your project. So we're going to look at your assignment, what you are doing. And for now, we're just setting up. And I wish we have passed this stage of setting up. So we'll start looking at how you are writing your code. For now, we're doing setup. So anybody can copy anything and paste. It's only setup. You're just setting up the project. So if we pass this setup stage, of course, we'll be looking at your code base to see how you are writing it and the structure and the format you are following. But now we're just doing setup. Yes, I am saying the middleware can be a code. It can be a code. For this one here, this middleware is not a code written by us, but it is a code written and packaged together with Express. So that's why we call express.json. This is a function inside Express, and this dot means this Express is too big as a function, and you're using dot to call this other function that is called JSON. Let me not go deeper into that so I will not get confused. How do we handle the password cap creation in the post request and assume it contains special character? Now that part is actually on a different level. You're going to handle that. Now you're not just creating the password. We're going to talk about creating the password, hash the password, so that even if the database is hacked, they cannot use user's password. You'll be seeing the password, but you cannot use it. So as the backend developer, you don't just create the password and save it. You create the password, you hash it, and make it, it cannot be recognized by anybody. And then before you save it. I'm trying to understand what you mean. This is a function. So I'm trying to understand what you mean by explaining it, but let me see if you meant something like this. Handle put request is equal to an async function. that accepts the request and the response object. So if I want to believe that this is what you mean, and you are saying I should explain this. So here now, we are initializing a function, and it is an async function. That is why we put the keyword async. Now this is a function because an arrow function, because we see brackets, fat arrow, and curly braces. So together with the async word, it becomes an async arrow function. So this variable here is now housing the whole of this, which is what? An async arrow function. Now, a function can accept parameters. Like we did before, you can add a function that accepts a variable and adds it together. So this function accepts parameters. The parameters are the request object and the response object. Like I said, you can type this in full. And the response object. So it has set two parameters, the request and the response object together, like that. Now, the part where you're talking about user, this is the user. Now, you can name your endpoint anything. That way, you identify the name of your API. So when you build an API, you give that API a unique endpoint name. That is why we say user and add user. Now, it's not compulsory that you must use the same name I use as users. No. You can put any name you want, but make sure that it is something somebody will understand. When they look at the code, you understand what you are talking about. So I believe that's what you are trying to ask. I should explain. So Christopher, the password creation, now we can handle that. We just need to add it here. Add the password and say my password is something like this. And that's it. So if I send a request, I will not see the password, because ideally people are not supposed to see password. But for the sake of this class, I can add it here and say return the email and return the password. So right now I'm returning an object with 3 keys: the message, the email, and the password. So if I send this request again, I'll see the message, the email, and the password, like this. So this is how you handle a post request. Here. What is the use of, I'm trying to understand what this is. What is the arrow doing here? Now, if I get your your question, you're asking me what is the use of this. If I understand, this is what you mean. So this is the same thing as a function. The only difference is that it's an EX5 function. So I can do all of these things I did here inside this function. And I'll call it handle request. Handle request is a function that will accept the request object and the response object. What do I want it to do? I just want to return a response with a status of 200. Sorry. And a JSON message. The message should say whatever I want it to say. Testing, for example, and save that. So here I can then add it here and say app.put, make a put request. If you make put request /edit user. If you make a request here, then handle edit user request. So I'll copy that and add it here and save. So if I make a request to this endpoint, it has to be a put request. So I'll come here, create another one, change this get request to a put request, make sure I'm on localhost, add / the endpoint. Now a put request expects me to type in something, but what I'm sending, I'm not using anything there, so I'm just sending back a response. So if I believe your question has been answered, that is a function, but it is an EX5 function. The only thing is, I am somebody that prefers using arrow function. And that is why you don't see me using this keyword function. And there is no, the reason why I love EX5, EX6, because it's an updated version and it handles a lot of errors for me. Now, this function sometimes is prone to error because unlike other functions, I can declare this function here. You know this is wrong. This is actually wrong because I am not supposed to call this function before I define it, but it's going to run. It doesn't care. Now, it is running because of what we call hoisting. Now, hoisting is like a key. Okay, I'll do that. All right. So, but let me explain hoisting. Now, you may attend interviews and job applications and whatsoever it is. They might bring in hoisting. They will bring in hoisting in so many different ways. So let me explain it in the simplest way that you understand, so that anyhow they bring it in, you can understand what they are talking about. Now, hoisting is a phenomenon that allows this function to run. Why is this function running? I am calling it up here, whereas the function is down. It is supposed to be up. Unlike this arrow function, they are all up before you call them. That is the normal way it should be. Define the variable, define the function before you call them. But here, I've already called this function before I even defined it. Why? That is called hoisting. What hoisting does in JavaScript means that JavaScript will take all your variables, all your functions, and put all of them at the top. So it does not matter where you define them. JavaScript will take all of them and put them all at the top. So whether you define them at the bottom of the file, by the time your file is running, JavaScript will pick out all the whole variables, pick out all the functions, and then put them at the top. But that only happens with EX5. So they might ask you, what is one disadvantage? Maybe not really disadvantage. What is one demerit? Or maybe why do you think people don't use EX5? You say it is because of hoisting. Hoisting picks up, hoisting means JavaScript will pick all your variables, all your functions, and define all of them at the top. It doesn't matter where you define them. It doesn't matter where you use them. It will put all of them at the top. So if you call the function before you defined it, because JavaScript has put it at the top, the function will still run. But this is only applicable in EX5. So EX6 was upgraded to curb hoisting. It means that in ES6, hoisting does not occur. Where you define your function is where your function will run on. So it means that you must define your functions before you call them. And like I said, this is usually an interview question, an exam question. They always come out regularly. You will see them. So you are saying throw more light on the password verification. Now, this password verification, you will do it. Why did I say so? As a backend developer, there are two key things you must know: CRUD you must know CRUD, and you must know authentication and authorization. So that is where this password thing comes in. And I'm going to explain it better when we get there. I just hope we will get there. I just hope and I pray that we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. They say keep saying it and believe it, it will happen. And so I'll keep saying it and we'll believe it and it will happen. Exactly. That is what I actually thought when I was learning JavaScript. And I was telling them, isn't it better that we have a function and our variables that can be declared anywhere and it picks all of them at the top? But for those who know better, so at this point, there are still some persons who argue that hoisting is actually an advantage instead of a disadvantage. But it is actually a disadvantage when you start writing large projects. So, but for now, we'll just keep it there. When you become good at JavaScript, you bring up your own argument. I'm definitely sure there are a lot of JavaScript developers who engage you and start arguing whether it's an advantage or a disadvantage. So that's all. Any question before we move forward? Any question on this before we move forward? Looking at this file from line 1, line 3 to line 20, look at it very well. Line 3 to line 20, look at it very well. Well, that's the part where we set up our server and also set up a middleware. That's for that. Come down here, looking at this first function, you understand what the function is doing. Looking at the second function, you understand what the second function is doing. Then down here, this is the third function, and I want to believe you know everything that is inside this third function and everything it is doing. If you don't, please drop your question. But if you do, drop a thumbs up so that we'll move on to something else. And then this is the last part here. So should we move forward? You drop a thumbs up so that we can move forward. If you have a question, drop your question now. Any question? No question? Thank you. If you want us to move forward, drop a thumbs up so that we can move forward. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So next thing we want to talk about is, okay, before I do that, before I do that, now I like keeping my file clean. That means I create a separate files for my functions. I create a separate file for my functions. So what I'll do is this. I will copy these functions, cut them out from here, and put them inside another file. So I will come here and I'll call this file functions.js. So this is a file that contains all my functions. If I save this and save this, my server will likely crash. Yes, it has crashed. Why? It says reference error cannot app.get handle get request. So it is not seeing what this handle get request is, because at this point, handle get request is no longer in this file. So how do I do it that it will see handle get request? What I need to do is come here and export these files so that they can be used outside of this file. Currently, you can't use them outside. They have to be inside here. So I'll say module dot export. I'm exporting everything as an object. And that is why you see me adding curly braces. I'm exporting everything as an object. And that is why you see me adding curly braces. So I'll open up the object. The first thing I want to export is this one. I'll copy the name and put it here. The second thing I want to export is this one. I'll copy the name and put it here. The third thing I want to export is this one. I will copy the name and put it here. So if I save this file, now my function is still crashing, although I have exported it from this file. I need to import it in this file. I need to import them here. How do I do that? I will say const import the whole file. I can import everything at once or import them one by one. So let's import them one by one. Require /functions. So inside the function, there's a file called handle get request, comma. There's a file called handle post request, comma. And there's a file called handle, I am lost. Sorry, let me just check the name again. Handle get request, handle user request, handle post request. So this is handle get request, handle user. So the next one should be handle user request. So if I save this, so what I did here was to import them one by one. Sorry, why am I not getting it? Handle user request. This is user request. So if I save that, my server is running. Now I imported these things one by one, but I can remove this and import all of them as one file and call it functions. So since there are functions, what I can then do, now my file is crashing, I can come here and say functions dot this is functions dot handle, which one should be here? Handle get request. Then this one will be function dot handle user request, and this one will be function dot handle I don't know which one is which. User request is this one. A post request. Is this a post request or a user request? I don't know. So, but what I did is just show you that you can import everything as one file, and then because you're exporting as object, you write the name of the file dot this. And if you look, my server is running now. Or you can import them individually. So any which way you want is a way. So you can import them individually. So what I will do is I'll just go back to having them. Because we have done this one before, I want to import them individually. And that will be like this. Open an object, say handle get request, handle user request, handle post request, and save them. My server is still running. Exactly, I'm destructuring. So whenever you see something like this, const curly braces is equal to, it means I'm destructuring. Destructuring means I am taking out of, I'm taking something from it. So that's what destructuring means. I'm taking something from it. So when you see const, then sometimes destructuring can come in this form. Const is equal to k, or like this, const is equal to h. So Now, these two things are destructured, but for different variables. This is curly braces. I'm destructuring from an object. This is square bracket. I'm destructuring from an array. So they are the same thing, but different. If you look at here, I'm exporting these things as an object. That is why I am destructuring as an object. So, but we're going to come to that later, not now. We'll come to more of that later. So that's that. I can remove this function here. Now this function, I can also add it to here, v, and just copy the name and add the name here and save that file. So I can also, what is the name of the function? Handle edit user. So here I can also import handle edit user. Now these things are too long. What you can do is break them down. You can break them down like this, like this, like this, if you want. But any which way, like I said, any which way is a way, as long as you understand what you are doing. Is there no way to link two files? I'm trying to understand what you mean by linking two files. And why would you want to link two files? You write your function or your variable in one and you export it, because you may not be using it in only one file. You may be using it in so many other files. You can declare a variable somewhere, you can use it in 2, 3, 4 files. So you export it and you can use it in any file at all. So it doesn't have to be just two files. There's no point, there's no need linking two files. Just write the variable, export it. Whether you want to use it in only one file or in two files or in 3 files, that's up to you. So that aside, now we've succeeded in creating our server. We have been able to get post requests, put requests, and get requests. Now, if we wanted, we can also do a delete request, but right now we're not doing that. So what is next? What is next is connecting a database to this thing. Now, I want to teach you a lot. We want to do more, but we cannot be doing these things with dummy data. We want to save the data. The way we saw the diagram on Jamboard, here on Jamboard, I was trying to explain to you what a backend is and how a backend works. So say I have, where is my pen? So say I have an app here, or maybe a website or whatever it is. This can be an app, can be a website, it can be a dashboard. So here I will have my server, which is what we have succeeded in creating. So this backend or this mobile app or frontend makes a request to the server. The server will also in turn send a response. So here I'll call it BE for backend. And here I'll call it FE for front end. Now this can be mobile app or website, not just a website. It can also be a postman. So when you make a response, we're getting this back, we're getting this back, we're getting this back. This is what our server is currently doing. What if the front end is asking for something we don't have? Or what if the front end is giving us data to save, and that data will be used another day? So currently, our backend cannot save any information without a database. That is why we need a database. So here we're going to create something that looks like this, like a database that communicates with our backend and also sends a response back to the backend. So it goes from this way down here. Now, most times they may ask you in an exam, or maybe in a test or so on, does the front end communicate directly with the database? Looking at this diagram, what is your answer? Does the front end, maybe the mobile app, maybe the website or the dashboard or any other thing, does it communicate directly with the database? Looking at this diagram, what is your answer? No, it does not. Now, you will be surprised. Some persons, when they enter exam hall, they will say yes. The back end, the front end will send them. Now, I've heard so many persons doing presentations that will say the front end makes a request to the database and comes back, and then they check another request to a back end, and so on and so forth. So when you are listening to persons and they make that kind of mistake, you understand that maybe it could be a slip of tongue, or maybe the person has no idea what they are talking about. I know a lot of persons that talk about codes. They are paid. They pay them. They call them technical writers, but they don't know how to write one code. A lot of them. They are in companies. They are in offices. We know them. We see them. They write about codes. They talk about codes, but they don't actually know what goes on the codes. The front end does not make requests to the database. The front end makes a request to the server. Now, it is the server that will be communicating with the database. So when you set up your server and you see that your server is now making response front and back, so it can connect to the front and the front can also send to it. So the two of them are now communicating like we have. The next thing you want to do is to connect a database so that the database and the server can also be communicating front and back too. So that is a full backend. Without a database, your backend is not complete. And there are so many types of databases. Now, I'm not here to explain or teach you database and data and all of that, but it's a good thing if you understand data structure, all of those things. It's a good thing. But as a backend person, you are more like an operations guy. You are not somebody that comes to give explanation, give presentations. No, I remember one project we had, and the client, of course, a big man, he wasn't really turning up financially. Like, he has the funds, but he's not convinced to send out to release the money as an investor. So the people who are our marketing managers and then the people who do the mama paperwork, they are out of options. They don't know what else to explain. So they had to call me and call one of my guys, those who are actually developers. Please, developers, bring your laptop or whatever it is and come and demo. So as a backend person, you are not a person that answers questions. You can't do that. It's an added advantage to you if you can do all of that. But you are more like operations. Something is wrong, they call you. Like, I can't be indoors picking calls 247. They're calling you, hello, David. A client tried to do this and have error. Please, can you fix this in the next 2 minutes? Hello, David. A client like to do this and they said it's not going through. Can you fix it, David? Hello, David. The server is down. So that's what you are. You are operations guy. You are there 247 because the moment you sleep, now, I'm not saying you will not sleep. Oh, of course, you need to sleep. You need all the whole sleep in the world. Otherwise, a lot of things will spoil. So you need sleep. But your operations guy, what am I saying? I may not teach you all about data, the English that is involved, and how to put them. No. But I might tell you there are so many types of databases. There are relational databases, there are non-relational databases. So now, but for the purpose of this your training, I've picked out only one database that we will use. I'm not saying that is the best, but it is the easiest. It is the easiest for you to use. I'm not saying now you can use it to build production app. It's not like because it's the easiest, so that means it's not used in production. No, it is actually used to build big projects. If you want to build big projects, so we have SQL, as a database. That is my SQL. You also have MongoDB as a database. You have Postgres, so on and so forth. What we call SQL databases. Databases that have, or how would I put it? Let me, I'll go next. So if I ask you to write the name of everybody in this class as a course rep, I'm sure what the course rep would do, maybe create a paper that looks like this, and inside the paper, create a table. Sorry, my table is not looking very straight. Bear with me. So, and then divide the table like this. So somewhere here, they should write serial number, SN, and here she writes names of everybody. Sorry, I'm just drawing this. This is their name, this is their email, and this place here is for phone numbers. So she write number 1 person, the first person, put dot, and put the person's name, so on and so forth. So this is a table. You get to create a table. Now, there are databases that work in this format. They create tables. So those kind of databases, we call them the SQL or the SQL. Some people pronounce this as SQL. I don't know if this is the real pronunciation. SQL or SQL, or you call them relational databases. Relational, R-E-A, relational. Relational databases or SQL databases are databases that save data in a table format. So any database that saves data in a table format, before you start saving data, you need to create a table. That's called an SQL or relational databases. There is another type of databases, those ones that are easier to use and also very easy to upgrade and upscale. You can scale them to large data production, and so you can start small with them. When you want to build a bigger project, they can also expand to handle a bigger project. So those are called non-SQL or non-relational databases. Non meaning you just add N-O-N. That's what non means. Non-relational databases, they do not save data in table format. Rather, they save in document. Now, I wish I could have a document. Could be, for example, you can't see my book, but I have a book in my hand, like a jotter. Now, this is a notepad, just a note. And of course, I want to believe everybody have seen a jotter before, or a note. So what I mean by document is the whole note. Let's say we tell the course rep to save everybody's name, but using a non-relational database format. She will not create a database with tables. No, she will buy a notebook. She'll buy a notebook and say, this notebook is for the names of everybody in this class. Now, the first page will be for Emmanuel. The second page will be for Kenneth. The third page will be for Michael. The fourth page will be for Raymond. So that means your information will contain the first page will contain all your information. It doesn't matter the format. It doesn't matter whether you have spaces there or not. Everything on that first page is just for you. So that is an example of how non-relational databases save data. So they save in documents. Document meaning one page is a document. Another page is a document. Another page is a document. Then the next page is a document. So each person has a document. Each person has a document. When you put everybody's documents together, it becomes a collection. So the difference between a relational database and a non-relational database is the most difference is the format with which they save data. That is the main difference. Relational databases or SQL databases save data in tables, but non-relational databases or non-SQL databases save data in documents and collections. Do you understand that, or do you have any question? If you have question, drop your question. If you don't have question, drop a thumbs up so that we move on to databases. Any question? Right. So we are going to be using MongoDB. Now, MongoDB, I use MongoDB a lot. I also use SQL, also use other databases. Now, depending on what your company is using. But for the sake of this training, we'll be using MongoDB. MongoDB is very easy to use with Node.js. That is why we're using it. But that doesn't mean it's simpler. Just easy doesn't mean it's simpler. It's easy. I know people who can't use MongoDB. They are still using SQL because for them, SQL is simpler. Yes and yes. Your backend is not complete without a database. Now, your company may hire somebody that their own job is to manage databases. They can if they want to. But if you are a backend developer, the database is your responsibility. So you don't just create a backend. You must create a backend and connect it to a database like that. So I'll open MongoDB here. Now, there are, like I said, MongoDB is a non-relational database, and it saves data in documents. And I will show you what document is. I wish I would see it here. I'm not seeing document here. So, but this is the database we are using, and it's called MongoDB. This is MongoDB. Let me remove the atlas and see if I see documents. Okay, I'm not seeing what I want to see, but there are 3 ways to use MongoDB. There are 3 ways to use MongoDB. You can use MongoDB offline. That is, you will install it in your computer. You can install it in your computer. That's offline. You can use it online. That means it's not installed in your computer. It is online. Your database has already been deployed. No, if you install database in your system and you finish building the project, as you are deploying your backend, you should also deploy your database like that. So, but like I said, you can choose to install it on your system and use it offline, or you can use the one that has already been deployed and is online. That's 2 ways. Now, the 3rd way is using it in the shells, MongoDB shells. And that's like doing a terminal, but it can be a little difficult for you to understand that. And there's actually no need bothering yourself with that. You need to understand how to use it in one way. Just pick one and you're done. Keep moving with it. Whether you're using it as online, or you're using it offline, or you're using it in the shells. Either way, just pick one and you move with it. So for the sake of your training, we will be using the MongoDB Atlas. Now, the MongoDB Atlas is the MongoDB that has already been deployed. It means that whatever we do here on our system will be saved online. So our database has already been deployed and it is online. And that is for MongoDB Atlas. But if you want to use it on your system, like you install it in your system, you go for MongoDB Compass, this one, you download it and you install in your system. So this is the one you download and you install in your system, the MongoDB Compass. So the two of them are the same thing. The only difference is one has already been deployed. The other one, you will deploy it when you are done with your project. So that's the two things. So to make it easier for you, I just want to teach you the one that has already been deployed that way. So to show that you actually understand what I'm saying, drop a thumbs up so that I understand that you really know what we're talking about. Drop a thumbs up. Let me confirm that I'm actually recording this. No thumbs up. Where are you, brother? Okay. No thumbs up. Am I seeing a thumbs up yet? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's see. How do you set up your database? No. With the offline or the online on, you need data. Yes, but you don't need too much data now. It's still small data. But the offline, you don't need data, but the online, you need data. Yeah, the offline, you don't need data, but for the online, you need data. Of course, it's online. So what I'll do is I'll click here, come to Atlas. Now, when you are using Atlas, now we are done with talking about MongoDB. If you have any question on MongoDB, you can ask me and I will tell you. But I just want to show you how to integrate this MongoDB to our backend. That's what we want to talk about now. But if you have a question on MongoDB, you can ask. Yes, you can upload images, but I don't actually like uploading user images to my database directly. What I do is I upload the image to the cloud, and then the URL of the image is what I save on my database. That way, my backend will not be slow. So what I do is I just save on the cloud and then save the URL. All right. Any question or should I proceed? All right. So like I said, let's see how to actually integrate database and start using the database with our backend. The first thing you need to do is to create an account or log in. Now, I must state, this Atlas, you can use it for free. You can use it for free. You don't have to pay for the database now. It has already been deployed, so you can use it for free. But when you start building big project for a company, for firms, startups, you need to pay so that you have a larger storage. So I'll sign in with my Gmail account. So if you have a Gmail account, you can actually sign in to MongoDB. So I'll sign in with Google and I'll pick any of my emails. I'll pick this one. Okay, now when it comes to saving user image on the cloud, that is actually not your job as a backend. Now, but you can do that if you want. But I prefer the front end to do that and send me the URL. But you as a backend, you can do that if you want. So how do you do that? You go to cloud. I use Cloudinary, but there are other ones you might want to use. I use Cloudinary for what I want to do. So it's not allowing me. How do I log in? Should I log in with which account? Log in with this account and see. So you can use any other cloud you want, but I like using Cloudinary. It is free for small projects. It is actually free for small projects. So Cloudinary helps you resize the image, enhance the image, use AI on the image, whatever you want to do with the image. So Cloudinary, not just for images, I save my videos there too. No, video, yeah, you can save any file you want to use. So I use Cloudinary for cloud. How do you do that? You allow the user to pick an image, send you the image, the front end uploads the image to the cloud, gets a response, and in the response, there will be the URL, and is sending you the URL. So the URL, you take it as a backend, and you save the URL for that image, like that. So that said, back here. Now, this is me logged in to MongoDB, like this. This is MongoDB, and because I have an account, that is why you're seeing all of this. So what I can do is log out of, I think I've already used this account. I will, but when you have an account, when you create an account to still bring you here, what you need to understand is, let me see if there's a question there. All right, no question. So you may not see this part initially. You may not see this, but you will see something that looks like this. I'm trying to open this part now. So if you log in with your email for the first time, you will see something that looks like this. It will ask you to enter name of project, and I'll enter Youth Thrive and additional tags if you want. I'll keep it empty and I'll hit next. And who's the owner of the project? This one. I'll create next. So I've created a project. When you log in, you'll see that. You may not see this. Now, the next thing is it will ask me to create cluster. You will see it asking you to create a project. You will see it asking you to create a cluster. So I'm just demoing what you might see. If I click on create cluster, it will bring me here and ask me, this one is $0.09 per hour for 10 gig storage and 2 gig RAM and 2 CPUs. And this one is serverless up to 1 terabyte, auto scale, and so on and so forth. Then this is pay as you go, like you bill hourly. So they'll bill you hourly. Now this is the one you should use because this is free. So you click on this one to tick this one. This is free. You are getting 512 megabyte storage and a shared RAM. This is fine for your project. You pick this one. Now it will ask you to enter a cluster name. Enter any cluster name you want. I can use Youth Thrive. Enter any cluster name you want. Here it will ask you for your provider. Do you want to use AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure? The one you choose doesn't really matter. The three of them work very fine. It doesn't matter which one you pick here. Here it will ask you for the region. Choose a region that's very, very close to you. And I say again, it doesn't really matter the region you pick. Pick anyone. Cape Town, if you want Cape Town. I normally leave it default at Paris. I leave it there. And that's all. So when you're creating an account for the first time, you see it asking you these two things: create a project and create a cluster. Those are the two things you see it ask you. So make sure you create a project, give it a name. And when it comes to the cluster, make sure you're picking a free cluster. The free cluster. Those are the two most important things when creating an account. So you can give it a cluster name, pick any provider, pick any region, and create deployment. So, and then you want to check if I'm a human or if I'm a robot, and I don't even know whether I'm human or I'm a robot. So it will bring you here. Now, when it brings you here, it might ask you to do this, but I'll not do this now. I want to explain. This is the dashboard of your database. Now, your database is one of the most important content or part of your backend. If your database gets hacked, everything is finished. So when you create your database, make sure you create an account. That means make sure somebody has to be an administrator on this backend, on this database. That is why I say create an account. So there are three things you need to set up. The first and the most important one is the database access. You want to give an admin access. That is the database access. That's the first thing. The second thing is the network access. Network access means who can access your website and from where. So you can set who can access the database and from where they can access the database. And then down here, the last part, you build your database. Those are the three things you must do after you create an account. So I want to be sure you got that three parts, but if you didn't, ask a question and I will respond. So like I said, when you log in, you've created a free cluster and you have created a free project. There are three things you must do. The first thing is to create a user that can be accessing this database. So that is the database access. You need to create a user that accesses the database. The second thing is to set a network access. You set the network access, who can access the database and from where. So the network access is from where they can access it from. And the third part is build a database. Every other thing, you can skip that for now. It doesn't really matter. So the three most important things: database user, network access, and build a database. Yes, you can speak. Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Mr. Samuel, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I was trying to find out about the access. So it means the engineer that creates the account, then why are we creating access for any other person? Are we the super admin creating for the admin, or what is that access all about? Then I was told that when you are creating using the kind of the database, if you're not careful, you can only access it from a particular device, but you may not be able to access it from any other device. So I don't know how I can be able to kind of get a concept of how to manage. Does it relate to this access itself,
Yes,
or it
it
has to do with
does.
the local? Okay.
Yes, it does. So let me explain. You can mute now. Now, the first thing I talked about is creating a database user. So you click to create a database user. Now, there are different ways of user, but you're going with the password user. So what you want to do is create a password for this user. I will create a simple password. I call it E123456 like this. Now rename the password E123456 like this. So Next thing is assigning a role to this user. Now, this user can actually be the admin if you want, or can only read and write to any database that you create on this account, or only read but cannot update. So you can pick any of the, but I advise you pick this one or this one, because you are building for users. You're not building for people who administer only the database. You are building for users. So what this simply means is you will create an account as the developer with your own developer rights. You link it to your backend. Now, for the backend, you know that, like I said here, it's here, back here. The backend connects to the database. You know that. So it means that when this backend is sending a query to the database will ask him, who are you? So the backend needs to tender some form of identification so that the database understand, okay, this is an admin. So, but this database now was created by you, and the request will be made by users. Users, will you be creating an account for users on the database? No. What you are doing is you are creating an account for yourself as a software developer and save the detail on your backend server. So whenever a user makes a request to your backend, that your details will be what will be sent to the database. So what it means is that the user is communicating to your backend, and your backend is communicating to the database on behalf of the user. Or simply put, the user is actually going behind you and using your database your password to communicate to the database. That's like indirectly, or putting it indirectly. But what we are saying is you create an account that gives you a read and write, gives you user read and write, and then you save that information on your backend. Whenever this backend needs to communicate to the database, it will use that login details. So whether it's a user that is communicating or another developer, but whenever this backend needs to communicate to this, it should use that password, because the database will ask the person for a password. So that is why you need to create a database access. So you create a password and you give them a role. So read and write. The reason why you are giving read and write is because the user can make a post request. Now, a post request requires that the backend will save that details. So it requires that the backend will save that details. So that is why you give read and write. Writing means saving. Reading means getting from it. And that's all. Every other thing you can leave it default, but you can go in more details if you want. But the most important thing is setting a password and giving a database read and write. You save. That's the first thing. So here you see the username. Sorry, I gave the username and the password the same name. That was a mistake on my end. But I'll leave that. I'll leave it like that. So this is the username, and the password is not showing here. I know what the password is. The second thing is the network access. Network access. Currently, it is only this IP address that can access this network, this database. Currently, it is only this IP address. So this is my current IP. In my location here, it's only me that can access this. But you can add new IP addresses. You can add new IP addresses from where you want, but I always say allow access from anywhere. The reason is because this is not an in-house database. It's a database that can be used by users from anywhere. So that is why I always use allow access from anywhere. So, but you can specify the IP addresses you want if you are limiting users. So, but sometimes you can have users in the villages, you can have users in the towns and outside and beyond, like that. So I would do allow access from anywhere. And that will be the IP address of 00000. Then you confirm, and that's all. So for now, it's applying. You see here, it also includes my current IP and any other user that will be using this software. That is the second part. You must see that it's active, otherwise it will not work. Then the last thing you want to do to set up this database is build your database. So what you do is just click on browse collection. Why is it browse collections? And to start building your database. So, but sorry, that's all. It has actually built my database before now. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is all. Now, what else? How can this be communicating with our backend? How can it be communicating with our backend? How? Now, this database will be communicating with our backend the same way our front end communicates with our backend using a URL. Using a URL. And where will you get that URL? Here in the database, you will see connect. Why is it doing like this? I said, okay. Yes. You see connect here. Now, if the database you are building, connect, if the database you are building will be used only within the company, because currently now, let's say for example, you are using Access Bank database, aren't you? Because you make transactions. Where are the transaction history saved? They are saved on Access Bank database. Your account balance, they are saved on Access Bank database. Your, what else again? Your details, your login details, your email, they are saved on Access Bank database. Now, if the developer should set it that it will only allow the IP addresses in their current location. Do you work at Access Bank? Will you be able to access your account? No. So it depends on where you want users to access it from. I always allow access from anywhere because my user can be anywhere. Now, it doesn't mean that will hack my website, my backend. No. Just because I allowed IP address from anywhere doesn't mean they will hack my database. No. They only hack your database when that password you created, that's the user access, when that password and username you created become exposed, that is when they can hack this database. But aside from that, they cannot hack it. What you are doing is you are saving that database access on your server, but not hard-coded. You are saving it in the .env file so that it will not be seen by anybody. But that gives the user the access to actually make a request to your backend, and your backend makes a request to your database like that. It goes that way. So what we means is that you are the person standing here accepting requests from the front end. Now, before the person here will make a request to you, they have to send you their login details. When they send you their login details, you see that what they are doing is correct. You use your own login details and make a request to the database. That's how it works. So, like that. That's how it works. Now, this server can actually be working anywhere. Now, you can deploy this server on a particular cloud. Let's not go deeper into that. I don't want to confuse you with that. Just allow access from anywhere. It doesn't mean they are going to hack your account. It doesn't. Now, it's only when your user login details become exposed that they can hack your account. So I'll click on connect because I want to connect my backend to a database. Now here, there are so many ways to connect. If you are using a compass and so on, but all these ones, or if you are using a shell, the one we are interested in is in the first one because we are writing Node.js. So I'll click on this. Now these are the versions of MongoDB, but I'm using the latest one. And you can choose to install MongoDB if you want, install the driver if you want, but I use URL. So I'll copy this URL. That's what I use. And I will come back to my code. Inside my .env, I will insert MongoDB underscore URL is equal to this. So this URL, nobody's supposed to see it. That is why I'm pasting it inside the .env file. If you look here, you will see that this is my username and it's asking me to type in my password here. So all of them put together makes up the URL. Now some persons divide it into different parts, but I normally put everything together in one URL. The username, the password, everything in one URL. So here I will enter the password here. So this information is not supposed to be seen by anybody. The only reason why you are seeing this one now is because this is a teaching class. There is nothing saved on that database. So you protect this env file like your life depends on it. Otherwise, plenty lawsuits will follow you. Plenty. There are a lot of persons who are waiting to, there are lawyers who are waiting to take up jobs. So they don't mind. They'll just pick up anybody to sue you for anything. So make sure nobody sees this URL and make sure you're not uploading this file to GitHub, so on and so forth. That is how you connect. Now, if you get this URL, you have gotten the password, you have gotten the username, that is all. You have no business with MongoDB again. All you get to do is come back and check whether your data is there, but you can perform a GET request to get your data. So that is all you need MongoDB for. The moment you get this URL. And how do we connect? Now you have gotten the URL. How do you then connect? We are going to be using a dependency to connect. Now, what is the name of that dependency? Let me go to npm.js. The dependency is called Mongoose. I will explain Mongoose better in our next class. Possibly, okay, we still have time. I can go ahead. So this is Mongoose. Mongoose is actually created for data MongoDB, and this is called a MongoDB modeling tool. Short grammar. We use Mongoose to connect, and we also use Mongoose to define the format of which our data should be saved. So even though we are not creating a table to save our data, we need to create a format. We can say put name, put email, put what's the other one called? Put phone number, and so on and so forth, like that. So how do we use that? First things first, I will need to install Mongoose. So let me install Mongoose as a dependency. Now, Mongoose is for our MongoDB database. So before you ask what is Mongoose for, Mongoose will allow us connect to our MongoDB database, and it also sets the format with which we want to save data. So I will install Mongoose. To be sure that Mongoose is installed, I will check here, and I have Mongoose installed here. And why is my server? Okay, my server is not crashing. I thought it was crashing. So I have this here. The next thing I want to do is ask my MongoDB to connect. Now, there are so many ways we do this. What I can then do is come here and say Mongoose, but I need to bring in Mongoose first. The same way I brought in all these ones. I'll say const Mongoose is equal to require Mongoose. The Mongoose are installed. Make sure you are importing Mongoose. So down here, I'll say Mongoose dot connect, like this. So inside here, I need to pass in this URL, because that's the only way it knows where to go and connect. If I don't pass in this URL, where is it going to connect to? But you know that you cannot copy this URL and paste it inside here. You can't. So what should you do? What should you do? You can then do something like, let's say process.env .mongo, let me copy the name, MongoDB, paste that. If that's done, I want you to run a function that will console log for me MongoDB connected. Now I'm trying it the simplest way. This is like the simplest way, and it says Mongoose no longer accept call back. So what I can do is then say remove this function here. I want to do it the easiest way. There's another way to do it, but let me do the easiest. Then pick this, and then console log for me and save. So this is how to connect to MongoDB. Now, if you look at it here, it says MongoDB connected. This is the simplest way to connect to a database. We have connected to database like this without too much hustle. All you need to do is install Mongoose, bring in Mongoose, and then set mongoose.connect, put that URL here. Now this URL is coming from here. So here you make sure that your username and your password is entered correctly in the URL before passing it in here. And with that, you have connected to MongoDB database. Any question? Any question? And any question on how we connected to MongoDB? Any question? I'm waiting for questions, or should I continue? If I should continue, drop a thumbs up. If I should continue, drop a thumbs up.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yes. You used it means the way you fetch your API or something. Yeah, I'm seeing .then. Or you already considered the log before, so I was wondering why the difference is. You said there are different ways, so but it's just that is it just we have to use a similar way for fetching our APIs or something?
Now, this is what we connect me to MongoDB, like this, one line. But I am adding this .then because when it connects, I want to know that it has connected. So I'm adding this .then for console log. Console log MongoDB connected. And save. So you see, it takes a while to connect, and then it's now connected. So without this line, I will not know whether it has connected or not. If you stay like that, I don't know whether it has connected or not. But when I add that line, this dot then handles a promise. When it has done this thing, then what's next? So that is what this dot then does for me. It handles a promise, and I'm using it to console log an information that will tell me when MongoDB has connected, like that. So there is another way to connect, which I like doing, but this is the simplest way to do it. And that's why I'm using this format. But there's another way. We'll come to that later. This is the easiest way to connect to MongoDB. So any other question? Yeah, MongoDB connection, you do it only once. Even if you don't understand it today, I will try again and teach it tomorrow so that you understand how to connect MongoDB. But like I said, this week, we're using this week to like round up everything set up and then move to backend proper. Once we set up the server, you connect your database, you're done. You start writing your APIs one by one. Now, let's say we have actually connected our MongoDB. And I told you that the Mongoose actually gives you the format with which you want to save data. Now, on this part, I want you to just follow me. It might look a little difficult, but follow me. I'll create a folder and call it models. The model simply means the format, how it should follow. That's the model of which you want to save data, the model. So inside here, I can create this model. It can be for student model. It can be for user model. It can be for cars model. It can be for any model you want to create, anything at all, whatever you are building your backend for. So here I will create it for users, or let's say students rather. I'll create for student model .js. That's what I've created. Now we want to bring in Mongoose here again because we were using Mongoose to create the format. Like I said, Mongoose helps us to create the format with which we want to save data. That's why I'm bringing Mongoose again. So what do I want to do? I'll say const student schema is a variable. I want to create a schema. It's a variable is equal to new mongoose dot schema. Now, what this means is that the schema is the format, and we are using. Wait. Why am I getting two mongoose? We are using the schema that is inside Mongoose. We want to advance it to tell Mongoose, since you are connecting to MongoDB, any data that you have to save on our MongoDB should follow this format. That's what we want to do. So you can pass in your object here to tell you the format you want it to follow. So let me pass in my object, and inside my object.
Sorry, that new, is it a class?
For now, let's not dive deeper into that. Just know that we are taking the schema that is on Mongoose and we are setting it to be our new schema. Let's just keep it that way so that we don't confuse everybody. Are we together? Did you hear me? All right, I'll proceed. So inside here, you put an object, the object that defines the format you want to use. So I'll put an object. Now, every student should have maybe a first name. That's for me. Every student should have a first name. And this first name, I want to set it that it will be a type of string. So your name cannot be numbers. It has to be a string. And I can equally set it to be required. So meaning that it is compulsory. That's what this thing means. So I'm setting the format inside my object now. The first one is every student should have a first name, and the first name must be a type of string, and it is required. I can set another one and say every student should have an email, and the email should be also a type of string. So that means your email cannot be numbers or any other thing. It has to be strings. I can equally set this as required, meaning it is compulsory. So let me break this so that it's spacious. So the last thing I want to set might be password, maybe the last or not. Now this is also going to be, maybe set it a type of string. I set it as a type of strings, but it can be a mixture of strings and numbers. Password can be a type of string and numbers, and this is required. Then the last one can be maybe your location. So your location will also be a type of string, but I will not set it to be required like that. So with this, I have defined a format. Anybody's details that will be saved on our database must go through this format. If it doesn't appear in this format, then create this format and keep it empty for them. If they are not sending you location, create it and keep it empty. They're not sending you password, tell them the password is required and bounce it back. So once I put required, it means it will not save without that. But if I don't put required, it will save but keep it as empty. That's the difference there now. Required, it will not save without it. But without required, it will save or keep it empty. So the last thing is, bear with me. I know I'm not explaining this much. So this will be students will be equal to a new model here. Now, what am I doing? On my database, it will be called students. Students. And the format it will follow is the student schema. So this means that we have created a model, a new model on our database. On that database, there will be a part of it that will be called student. And the format it will be using is this format that we created here. So I need to export this so that I can use it outside to modules.export is equal to students, like this. Now I know that this can be a lot to take in. That is why I'm not going deeper into it. I want to explain it in a way that's easy to grab and understand. Then you can go deeper into it later. So here we define the format. Now you can add any format you want. You can add more and more and more. Of course, we're going to add more, but this is our first time using it. So that's why I'm keeping it very simple for details. The next thing is, when you create a format, you want to create a model on the database. On the database, create a section for students. Create a section for students, and that section should be using this format, which is this student schema, which is this. Use that schema, and here we are exporting it for use. So what I can do now is make a post request with these details and see whether that details will be saved on our database. Should we go ahead? If we should go ahead, drop a thumbs up. If you have a question, ask your question now. Should we go ahead to post data into the backend? All right. So I have this. Now here we have a post request somewhere inside functions. That is this. What is schema? Schema simply means format. The format. that is what I call it anyways. The schema is the format. Another name for me, another name for schema is format. So what we are simply doing here is saying, in other words, we are using the format that comes with Mongoose, but we are using it to create a new format. And in it, we are expanding by adding these ones to the existing formats. So there's a format of which Mongoose operates with, but we want to add this format to be our own format. And the format is the schema. So when you hear create a Mongoose schema, we are simply saying create a Mongoose format to save data. Is it format? Oh, there's another word for format. I'm looking for another word for format. I've used format a lot, but it's just format. That's what schema means, the format. The model is also the format, but the model contains the name and the format. The name, and the name here is student. The format is the student schema. Yeah, the pattern. Thank you. The pattern with which it should follow. The pattern. So like I said, let's post this first name, email, password, and location into our backend. So if we're going to be doing that, exactly the template you should follow. Thank you very much. So here we're saying we should accept the first name also. What is another one? We're accepting password, accept the location too. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. So I have 4 of them. Now I'm accepting 4 of them. The validation, I can still keep them. I can do more validations if I want, but for now we just want to post. So what I'll do here,
Please, sorry, sir. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, on that, when you're trying to, after the schema, I would like to the schema. If you can go to the section of the schema.
Yeah, I'm on the schema.
Okay, so now looking at that student was just a variable. It can be any variable, just to be able to remember that student schema, right?
Yes. What we are creating this model is for student model. Now, if it is the product model, this will be product name, product price, everything about the product. If it is a car's schema, this will be car model, car chassis, plate number, and so on and so forth. If it's a doctor's model, it will be doctor name, license ID, so on and so forth. If it's a police schema, the police rank, police branch, whatever information about the police. If it is what other thing can we use? Anything at all. You can create schema for anything that you want to save. It can also be for blog. If you want to be saving blogs, the blog will have a title, a description, a snippet, maybe an image also that comes with the blog, like that. So you can save anything you want, and you can create a schema. Now, this is our first schema, and that is why I'm keeping it very simple. With time, we're going to build bigger schema, plenty schema, like that. So back here, I will remove this validation so that it will be simpler. But you can add validations, and I'll remove this email for now. What I have is just accepting the details that the user will send and sending a response. But I want to save it on my backend. What would I do? I will first create a password and say new student. This is a new student variable is equal to. Now, what do we want to do? We want to say follow the new student schema. Now, what I can do is first I need to import that student schema here. So I don't want to use auto import. I want to show you cons student schema or student model is equal to require the model we just created, the file we just created is equal to /models/student model, like this. So this is the model we created. This is the model we want to follow. What we are simply doing is that we need to pass in this thing into the model and make sure that all of these things follows that model. That is why we are passing it inside the model here. So what I'm simply doing is accepting all the details from the user, passing it into our model to be sure that it follows the student model. Then the next thing I want to do is await. The reason why I'm awaiting is because I want to save, and it might take a while to save. That is why I'm using await new student dot save. So this is a Mongoose word, but we're gonna explain that later. We don't have to. I just want to show you that we are actually gone far, which means we accept the details from the user, pass those details into our model to make sure that it follows the new model, and when it passed through, save them as a new student. If this is true, if all of these things is actually what is in our student model, it will create a new model, a new student, and save it here in this variable. Then we'll take that variable and save it on our database. Then we send back the new student. Whatever is saved as the new student, we send it back, or we can say non-new student. We say the student detail, student details should be the new, anyhow you want to put it. You can put new student, you can put student details, anyhow you want to put it. I'm just trying to put a key here and the value. And the value is what will be saved here from the model. And once it passes through the model and it is true, it comes inside here, and then we'll take it from there and save it on our database. Once it is saved on new student, then we're sending back that new student as the student details, and that's all. So what I can do is come back to Postman to test that this thing is actually working. So we have to make sure that we're passing these 4 things. I'll copy them, and that's on the post request, and the post request is called the add user. So I can change this to add student instead of user. Add student. So here there is add. I'll change this to add student, and then remove these things here. Remove. Paste these things. These are the 4 things that we're expecting. So I'll create these ones very well. Sorry, just give me a few minutes and I'll tidy up this. No. So what is my first name? I will type in David. What is my email? example@gmail.com. What is my password? E123456. What is my location? PH. So I have typed in my details and I will send this request. And I got an error because now the error here says string is not defined. It simply means that there's a place where in the schema, instead of capital letter, I use small letter. So the string that you should use in your schema has to be capital letters. That was my error. So I will save that and see that my server will restart again. Model is not defined because this has to be Mongoose model. Sorry, the Mongoose model. Yeah, now my server has started. So I will send it again, and it has saved. How do I know it has saved? Because automatically it has created an ID for this user. Mongoose MongoDB database creates ID every time you save a user, And to confirm that it is actually on our database, I will come back, click on Browse Collections, open it. Now I see that model here, and it's called Students Model. If I click on it to open it, I have this user here. So this is an example of what we call a document. So a document, if you look at it, it has the first name, the email, the password, and the location. Now, and in addition, it will bring this underscore VV and the ID for you, underscore ID, like that. So, but it has actually saved this user. And I can add another user if I want. And I'll change this to possibly Samson. And this can be Sam. And then send this request again. And that has also been saved. To confirm, now initially here, we have only one. This is one of one. But if I refresh this up here and come back again, now I have two of them here. So the first person, the first name is, can I make this bigger? Sorry. Yes, so the first person, this is that document and it has their details. The second person, this is the document and it has their details. Now, I can do this in such a way that I don't have to be coming here to see whether they have been saved. I can just make a GET request and see whether it will get me anything from the backend. So what I can do is in my GET request, where is that? This is /user handle user GET request. So where is handle user GET request? Here, I can say, come here. When they make a request, const users should be equal to await. Go to this student model here, dot find. So when I put in dot find, I'm simply saying, go to the student model, find everything that is in that student model, find it and save it inside there as our users. And then in addition to list of users, or you know what, let me say successful. In addition to use of users, return users. So that is a GET request. Now this GET request will find all the users, all the students that are on the students model and save them inside this variable called users, and then return a response with a message that says list of users and drop all the users that it found. Now to confirm that this is actually working, we'll go back to that user request, which is this, and send, and you see that it is returning in an array of users. So this is just two arrays. If I send another request, which might be Kenneth, and put Ken here, and send. Now it has created the request. Now if I come back to make a GET request and send, now you see that I have three. This is David, this is Samson, and this is Kenneth. So this is like a milestone we have achieved. Now I understand that this is a lot, but thumbs up to you if you actually know what is going on here. Thumbs up to you if you actually know what is going on here. But if you don't understand what is going on here, no problem. Tomorrow we'll visit it again, and hopefully tomorrow you will understand. So any question so far? Any question on what we have done?
Yes, I have about two questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, the first one was, now I'm talking about privacy issues. You know, attention, we are filling some forms, entries to tell us for privacy, and after a particular period of time, they'll be left out of the database or whatever. So it means the backend engineer has access to whatever information that, or the database administrator have access to whatever information that we have, right?
Yes.
Then that
Now,
okay. So it means
but
okay.
but there is a clause. For example, this password, you see on the database, we are saving this password raw like that. Meaning if somebody logs in, they are actually seeing the password. But that is not supposed to be the case. The password should be hashed before saving. So it means that even though the administrator can see the password, but because the password is hashed, they don't know what the password is. The same thing for your BVN. Even though they are seeing the BVN, it has been hashed. When I mean by hash, let me just show you an example of hash. Example of hash. Hash string. Um, um Sorry, let me type it again. Hash string so that um I'm not seeing the string, but it means that the string will become so long, mixed with chunks of letters and alphabets and numerics, that you will not understand what the password was before. So that's what hash is. But we're going to do that. We're going to hash the password and save it. Any secret information that belongs to the user, before you save it, you hash it and you save. For example, their password, their BVN, anything at all that is secret, you hash it before you save it. That way, if somebody hacks into your database or anything happens to your database, they may be seeing their name and their email, but they cannot see those secret information that belongs to the user. And that is why for the privacy, you will tell them that you are not sharing their data with anybody. Their data is safe with you. That's when you are hashing it, that's when you tell them that. But if you are not hashing it, don't tell them that. But you must hash it as a backend. We are going to come to hash. We are going to be hashing it. But for now, let's just see how to save data on our database. Any more question?
Okay, yes, sir. The second question was regarding now when we try to get those information using the get request, it gives us an array. Is that just a simple format of how the APIs we are going to be the APIs, or is more than that?
Now, when it comes to defining data, you are the one to define the format. Whatever format you define, that is the format that the whole application will follow. Now, but you know that it is going to be the format for more than one users. And what is an array? Array is a variable that holds value for more than one variables or values rather. So if you are going to have 100 users, know that the 100 users is coming as an array. If you have 2 users, it's coming as an array. Even the 1 user is also going to come as an array. The reason is it is believing that this will be students, not just one. It will be students. So even though you have 1 student on your database now, there's every possibility that by tomorrow another student will register. You will have another student. So the data will be coming as an array because it is expected to come as more than one. And that is why we use find here.
Finally, I was asking of APIs, the
Yeah.
relationship with APIs. Like that's just how APIs are defined, right? Most of the time, by defining them as whatever number of data are there as an array. I know we've not gotten there yet, but I'm trying to say
Now
that
this here
if okay,
is an
yes,
API. This here is an API. And what this API does is go to the student model and find all the students and return a list of all the students. It's an API. It's a complete API. Complete API. Nothing is missing from it. This is a complete API. And what it does is it goes to the student model, find everybody that is there, and return a list of all the users. That's an API. Now, the second API is this one. What it does is It accepts all the details that are sent by the user in the request body, pass it through our schema to create a new student. If it passes through our schema, it creates a new student, and then it saves that new student on our database, then returns a message to tell you the save was successful with the details of the new student. This is a complete API because it is interacting with the front end and also sending back data and saving on the database. So this is a complete API. Nothing needs, you can add more if you want, but currently it's doing the job of an API. So any other question?
Sorry. Yes, the final one from me is when we started backend, just to be able to make us to have a clearer concept and not see it as ambiguous. You said that backend generally is just something once you just set a kind of structure, then continues. So is it similar for a general structure for all languages, or it varies entirely, or just similar concept? Because somebody was mentioning JavaScript, so I was just trying to okay, is it similar concept, or is something, if you are learning using another language, it has to be a different model or something?
Now, for this one, this is a different programming language, JavaScript. Now, I must say that Java and JavaScript are not the same thing. Java and JavaScript are not the same thing. Now, Java is a programming language that you can use to build mobile apps, and you can also use it for backend. JavaScript is a programming language for the web, and you can also use it for backend and also for mobile apps and other things too. For that's JavaScript. So Java and JavaScript are not related in any way. But when it comes to building any project, a programming language has its own way of doing things. So Java will have its own way of doing things. JavaScript would also have its own way of doing things. But if you are building more than one backend with JavaScript, which is Node.js, all of your backend will be the same. It will follow the same pattern. They may not be the same keywords, the same schemas, but just the same format. It will just be the same thing. For example, here we are finding all the students. It means that if you are building a database for doctors, you also find all the doctors. If you are building a backend for post, a blog, you also find all the blogs. So Node.js has its own way of doing things. You can find all, you can save everything. And also Java will also have its own key ways of doing things too. So they may not be the same. But if you understand backend generally, you would know that there is a pattern to all the programming language. It doesn't matter what kind of programming language. They are all the same thing. For example, even though I am doing this with Python, I know that the first thing to do is to accept the details that the user is sending. So that's the first thing. So it doesn't matter whether it's Python, it's Java, Django, whatever you're using to build it. First thing, you accept it. When you accept it, you pass it through your schema to make sure that it follows the format that you want to use. You can validate it if you want, and then you save it, and then you send back a response. Now, the keys that you will type in might be different, but that is the structure. You already know how the format it will follow. You accept the details, you pass it through your schema, you save, and you return a response like that. So if you understand one backend, you may not really know the keys in another programming language, but you understand the format, you understand the structure. But if you are using Node.js, you understand the structure for all Node.js backends. That's it. So any other question?
Thank you very much.
All right. But the backend can still access the info. Now, I think this you are talking about the hashed info. Yes, it is only the backend that we know what it hashed. For example, if I tell you, Aloysius, please hash this data and save it, it is only you that hashed it that we know. But this time, it is the backend that will hash it. It is not the developer that will hash it. It is the backend that will hash it. So it is the backend that knows what information it hashed and how it did it. So we don't know. We just know that we give it the command, it carry out the order, and that's it. So any other question? All right. Any other question? So currently, we have actually built a full backend, complete backend. This is the first time we are actually completing a backend. Hopefully from now, everybody will start building a full backend because the assignment has never been full because there has not been a database. So now we have a full backend. Hopefully, it's not difficult. It's not difficult. If you pay attention to it, it's actually very easy. And I'm trying my best to make sure that it is simple and very simple. So if you pay attention, it will always be simple to you. So any question before we end? Yes. So to reset password is actually a unique thing. You are not resetting the old password. Rather, you are accepting a new password and using it to replace the old one. So the old one will be deleted and you replace the new one after you have confirmed that the person who is typing this new password now is the owner of the account. So you're not resetting the old password, you are deleting the old one and replacing it with a new password. And you are going to come to that. If we don't delay too much, if we are still on track, if we're still following the timeline, you will come to that and hopefully we'll cover that. All right, any question before we call it? And do I need to push this thing to GitHub today or I will push it to GitHub tomorrow? Okay. All right, so I'll create, and I need to be deleting this GitHub account, this GitHub repos that I'm creating. I'll delete them after now. So I'll create a new repo, and I want to believe everybody by now know how to push to GitHub. I'm not talking about push. Yes, now your backend server is supposed to be running 247, meaning it's not supposed to go down any day at all. So if it hashes a user's password, it knows what it hashed. It will know the password, and it's not just the backend. There's a dependency that we will install to help the backend always remember what it did. So we will not remember. Of course, the backend is a robot. It knows what it did and it can always undo it and like that. So, but we'll come to that. So this is going to be, what name should I give it? Back end, not back end. Yeah, back end. And I'll keep it public. I want to believe everybody knows how to push. For now, drag and drop. Let me call it drag and drop on GitHub because it's very important. Very, very important. So I've created that. I'll click on upload an existing file. So my files are here. Now, where is my browser? This is my browser. I can close Postman, right? Yeah. So I want to drag the function, the index. No, not this one. I'm looking for it here. This, and this. Now you don't need the node modules, so that's why I'm not sending node modules. Are you serious? To drag and drop is always hard. My hands get wet. Okay, that should be pushing down, and it's done. 1, 2, 3, 4. Commit. Processing. You can still ask your questions, so I can attend to them. Here, I copy this URL and paste, send. So in the absence of any question, you can drop a thumbs up so that we end the class. The absence of any question, you can drop thumbs up so that we end the class. So like I said, I will always repeat, don't be the person that attends the class and will not get something from it. I had 2 students who are not part of this class call me that they watched the video on YouTube, that they saw it on YouTube, and they are happy following it. And some persons, one of our admins said that students are now asking us to upload the full videos, just give everything. So you that is in class, try to pay attention and get something from it. Now you have me here to answer any question, and I'll show you anything that we're doing. So that will be the end. See you guys tomorrow. Thank you for coming today. Are we almost done with the backend? Let's get there first. We'll know whether we're done or not. All right, bye.